Welcome to the IOP Lens, where we explore the human stories behind industrial and organizational psychology. This video podcast is about real people, real journeys, and exploring how we get to where we are and how we become professionals on this journey of industrial and organizational psychology. My name is Dexter Nyamutumbu. I am your host at the most, chairperson of the interest group of emerging work psychologists. And today I'm joined by my two lovely guests, Ntswaki Raboroko and Amogelang Chepape. Our conversation is going to be very flowy, very informal, because we are really about sharing the stories with you guys as well, so you can understand what this journey looks like. Yes, we are aiming this at emerging work psychologists, but also those who are ahead, in terms of how they can advise those that are up and coming. So that's just a bit of context as we head into it. But as we start, ladies, so I'm going to start with you, actually. So tell us your story as how did you end up in industrial and organizational psychology, and why are you still here? Because it is quite a long journey, and you stayed the whole time.
Okay, so good day, viewers. My name is Amo. I am a recently registered industrial psychologist. My journey started in university. So I studied, my course was psychology and labor relations. So I had an IOP module and I fell in love with that module. I was studying more for that module. So I found myself in a state of flow when studying for industrial psychology. I then decided my second year that I'm going to add industrial psychology modules. So I had 3 majors. And that's really how I fell in love with business psychology. It was just so intriguing for me. How can I apply psychology, business science into the working environment? And then that's really how my journey grew. And then I did super well. I got into my honors. I did super well. I got into my master's, and then I did my internship, and now I'm a full-time practicing industrial psychologist.
Interesting. And what's kept you on this journey? Because I know you say, merging business and psychology, but like now that you're actually in practice, what makes you feel, well, firstly, is it the right decision? Do you feel like you made the right decision? And if so, what makes you feel that way?
I genuinely believe I made the right decision. It's a profession that has been keeping me grounded. I love business. I love psychology. I love people. And as cliche as it sounds, but that's just really who I am and how it energizes me. Helping organization and optimizing, talent and the people, and also helping organizations bring in the right people and developing those people, right? So I love it. So yeah, that's just me and why I'm still here, and I'm still going to be here.
Sounded like a true professional about transforming in all of these technical terms. There's psychology jargon, love it. And I resonate with that so much, because I think with me, I actually didn't understand psychology during my undergrad. I was just doing it because I had to be in university,
Yeah.
I don't want to sit at home, upgrade my marks. I was like, no, I want to go study.
Yeah.
And only in honors, when I actually got to understand what this field is about, I was like, actually, I'm glad I made it here. I got in it by chance, but I stayed by choice, That's a bit of my story, but we're not here for me. And so, what's your story?
My story is actually similar to yours. I got into the psychology stream through a bursary I got from the Free State local government at the time. And they were funding students that really wanted to study psychology. And at the time, it was the industrial route or the clinical route. And I just thought, okay, let me just do a general degree because I've got funding for it. But then got to my honors year and clearly started to understand what the psychological application of the science is in organizations, and I was fascinated by that. And I loved I suppose because I love reading, there was a lot of theory, a lot of understanding, really old concepts and old models and old frameworks, and I was geeking out. And it's a long story, but at the time after my honors, I thought, okay, let me go the psychometry route, which I did, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later on. And but then decided to go all the way to become an organizational psychologist. Did my master's in at Poch, and got through an internship at MultiChoice, and here I am. It's been absolutely amazing.
How long have you been a professional for?
Oh my gosh. So I officially qualified in 2010. 2010. And I remember because that year, it was the first time Johannesburg, as far as I've been living here, it snowed that year. And I was working in an organization where the offices were underground, and I actually missed the snow. So that's how I remember I qualified around
of missing the snow.
Listen, yeah, and I'll never forget it. And my kind of results came through, and I had landed the qualification. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So, okay,
She's
so we've
been
got
in the game.
I've been in the game for a while.
what, 16 years now. 2010, I'm gonna expose myself here, but 2010 I was doing grade 6. I remember crying so badly because I was watching the World Cup. When Brazil got knocked out, I cried on my bed. I was like, no. I had no idea what neuropsychology was about back then, and here you were already registered and neuropsychology. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, thank you both for sharing. I think so. We kind of explored how you got into this, so now I want to get into where you are now. So I'm gonna still stick with you. And like, so where are you now? What spaces are you working in? What does your day to day really look like?
So predominantly, my career has been in financial services. It's the one industry I've thoroughly enjoyed working in. I mean, I've worked across different industries, aviation, I've been in media, but financial services has really stolen my heart. My last role was in Old Mutual. In transition to a new role, but still within financial services, banking specifically. And the space I play in is in talent management. So broadly, recruiting or talent acquisition, assessments, talent management, retention, succession. So the whole life cycle. It's incredibly exciting. And a lot of the work that I've been doing and what I do at the moment is working very closely with exco and leadership teams and organizations in helping them think through and applying, I think, the science of psychology in helping organizations get the best out of their people. That's effectively what we do. Whether that's in helping a business, find the next CEO for that company, or whether it's helping a newly appointed graduate figure out, where to from here, and helping them really realize their own potential, but also helping organizations think through how to build sustainable businesses from a succession perspective, as an example, using the science that we've been trained in, and it's incredibly fulfilling. It's been incredibly fulfilling. Yeah.
And to what extent do you focus on the individual within your space? Because I'm hearing a lot of organization focus, succession planning, all of that. But then, what about the individual?
That's a really good question. I suppose I'd say the split between working with individuals and groups and teams within an organization, I'd say it's split 50-50. So a lot of the work that I personally would lead and conversations I'd have would be with individual business leaders in helping them look at their teams, look at their businesses, and think about optimization or think about how to get the best out of the people that make up their respective teams or organizations. So a lot of the work, and I suppose it's with as you gain more experience, and I suppose it's where you'd find yourself within the organizational hierarchy, but being an executive lead for talent management, for a JSE listed business, a lot of the value that you bring to an organization is in actually coaching leaders to think through how to leverage their people. And then you let, the rest of the leadership teams in that spaces, to then do the work of leading their people. So that's where I'd say 60% of my time is spent in coaching leaders. And I've had the privilege of working with some of the most incredible CEOs of major companies in the country, and it's a similar thing, whether it's a CEO or a divisional head. I think the question is always, how do I get the best out of the people that I'm leading?
Sure, that's so powerful, because as you're speaking, I'm thinking of that quote that says, "Where the head goes, the body will follow." And I remember seeing this post on LinkedIn not so long ago, speaking of how much power managers have over not just your experience at work, but your career in general as well. And I think that's such powerful work that you're doing, so influential, because you're starting at the top, because oftentimes we're always complaining about what's happening at the top, and to be able to make an impact in that space, I think that's really great work that you're doing in that space. So thank you for that.
Yes.
What's happening in your space?
So I recently joined Mukuru, so it's a fintech company as a organizational development partner. For the past 5 years or so, I was in psychometry and consulting. I used to make this analogy to say consulting really teaches you how to practice in the various domains of industrial psychology. So did consulting, very happy, but I felt I need to pivot and I want to be an in-house practitioner, right? And landed the job at Mukuru. So there I really focus on organizational development, talent management, the full cycle of talent management, EVP, as well as psychometry. So those are my portfolios. I just joined, but I'm very excited to really practice talent management and, alluding to what Ntswaki said and what you said about, the head, analogy that you provided, where I really sit is speaking to the individuals. And I know you asked that question particularly, how do we develop the individuals? And one way to really empower individuals and guide them and make them more efficient and effective in what they do, for me, it really starts with employee listening, asking them, what's keeping you here, right? Where do you want to go? In terms of succession, where do you see yourself growing? So it's quite important to have those conversations with your employees and try to understand what's keeping them there. Are they fulfilled? And if not, why not? So you can also think about strategies to mitigate those, right? So I find it very powerful that we need to speak to the employees of the organizations, the engines of the organizations, really, and just make them a happier employee. So that's really where I'm at. Perhaps next time I'll come back and I'll let you know what I've implemented.
Look at you inviting yourself back into our podcast.
But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Sure.
What I was saying, Dexter, if the point around employee listening is so foundational. I think it's so key because certainly when I was in university, this whole concept of building people practices that are human centric was not necessarily an idea from a design perspective. But what we're seeing now is whether you're designing or thinking about creating a new policy, for a company, thinking about putting a policy together is no longer just about, you putting words on paper, but it's also around thinking through what will this mean for an individual. I've got, Tsepo, who's 18 years, that's just started in our organization. And then you've got Peter, who's 55. And those two people are at very different stages, and how you then think about the application of the science or the application of, I think, the solutions we bring to the table. It's now so different to, I think, our training. And I love the fact that I'm with you guys, the future of the profession, the youngians, because the needs of employees are fundamentally so different now to when we started out, certainly from a career perspective.
Yeah, we had a conversation this morning about flexibility and how it's important for the youngins, and those are the work dynamics we are facing now. And I honestly believe they've always been, shift in this kind of, group in the organization and the ones that recently joined. It's different cultures, right? So it's quite important for organizations to understand how to build policies that are, that fit for person A and person B. So it's no longer about just the generic, wording that you put together. You need to think about from your C-suite level all the way to, your cleaners. So that's very powerful what you mentioned.
And I actually have a case study of my own where we're actually changing or reviewing all the company policies, and I was in charge of that project. And my thinking was shifting from, okay, like you said, putting words to paper, because there's a reason we're putting those words on paper. There's a reason we're implementing those policies. And for me, it was always about behavioral change, because a lot of what we do is trying to understand and change behavior. Psychologists in general, not just industrial psychologists. So even in the policies, everything that we do is really focused on that human behavior, and especially in the workplace, But I want to pivot slightly, because we are here for SIOPSA. So I just don't understand what are your current roles within SIOPSA, because I picked you guys for a reason, because you are in SIOPSA, just random guests. But so give us a bit of background of your history and of your engagements with SIOPSA and what role you're currently playing within the society.
Great. So I am part of the interest group in coaching and consulting psychology. I'm a mentor there. I've been a mentor for over 4 years in that space, but I've been part of the mentor sessions since my honors. Sure. So when we speak about succession, I always make that example when I speak to my colleagues that I joined the interest group to speak to an IOP, to understand what is this career about. And then still joined in my master's, and then did my internship, and then I was a mentor, right? So that's really what I believe in. I believe in mentorship. I love mentorship. And I've been blessed with a community of seasoned industrial psychologists who have really spoken life into me and who have really guided me. So I genuinely believe my role now is to be that person to emerging industrial psychologists. And that's really one of my purposes. I love mentorship. So that's me in a nutshell.
And what role has SIOPSA, especially like within the interest group you're currently in, what role has that played in shaping you as an industrial psychologist and also as an individual?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, it has really helped me to be grounded. I always say my journey to becoming was so layered. Difficult layers and easy soft landing layers. So having a person who has walked through my journey and having them say, Amo, do this in this particular way, or maybe pause, don't fixate on that. It really developed me, developed my identity in this career. Sure. So yeah, that's just what I always say to Gail, that I'm appreciative of SIOPSA and the various interest groups that speak about different topics that different industrial psychologists are passionate about, because we get to speak in those sessions. We get to ask questions, we get to learn and listen. So that is for me, the major role that the interest group has played. And like I said, I want to be a person that, provides guidance to others.
It's also powerful. And I love that as you speak, I'm thinking how we're doing this out of passion. None of us get paid to be in this space, but because like you're saying, give back and help others on this journey. That's where we're coming from. That's the kind of impact we want to make. So we're not just within organizations, but we're generally making an impact even in society, communities as well. But yeah, I'm going to jump to you. Like, what's your role currently within SIOPSA?
So I'm part of the professional practice team. I chair the portfolio, but I've been part of SIOPSA for as long as I can remember. And I think the society, similar to Amogelang, it has played such a big role in helping shape me, one, but also in helping build my own confidence. And learn from different people, whether it was through, workshops or the conference itself, or just through the relationships that I've built over the years. And I mean, thinking about it, when I first came to Johannesburg in 2008, coming from a small town, as somebody with aspirations to be an organizational psychologist, I personally didn't know where to start, but having had access to the society and being that young at the time, it kind of helps anchor and ease your anxiety around navigating the space. And I can imagine there's hundreds of other, emerging psychologists coming into big cities from small towns, and having SIOPSA in place, I think, as a community provides such an immense, I think, confidence builder, but also support construct. The portfolio itself, professional practice, I think our purpose is to ensure the sustainability of not just SIOPSA, but the profession. So we are the team that bridges the gap between being the voice of our members, whether it's through our stakeholders like the HPCSA or within SIOPSA itself, but really advocating, one, for the interest of our members relative to the direction the profession is taking from a regulation perspective, but also with the HPCSA, making sure that we advocate for the profession itself, making sure that we understand and we help help manage and mitigate any risk that could relate to the future sustainability of our profession. So that's over and above the training and the continuous development that comes with professional practice. That's a big part of why we exist.
There's so much I want to double down on, but that's not what this episode is about.
Don't go to the
so
there. Okay.
That's a one.
Coming back for another episode.
Oh, listen. But actually, I want to double down on something you said, because you did say that you came into this field, not really knowing where to go, how to go about it. So my question is, what expectations did you have when you were starting out that actually turned out to be different once, you got into practice and once reality kind of hit?
The expectations at the time, I found it easy to link my aspirations of being an organizational psychologist to building a career in organizational development and organizational effectiveness for some reason. And I think for me personally, it was because organizational development is one domain where you still, to a large extent, apply the theoretical fundamentals of what you studied in practice. That's where, that link continues for longer, as opposed to other domains within the people area or the HR area. And so for me coming in, I think the expectation was, I want to really be a strong consultant. I want to be the person that businesses go to and ask advice from. But I think in understanding the steps that it would take for me to get here, it's only in retrospect that I'm like, okay, so I needed to do A, B, C, and D. But at the time, I didn't really understand. And what I found really useful was spending a large chunk of my earlier career in generalist human resources. So sure. I was in a lot of HR business partnering roles where I did everything from employee relations to HR administration. And I found spending that much time of my career, including recruiting, right? And I often say to students that reach out to me around, okay, where do I start? Or I just qualified and I'm struggling to find a role that feels like it's an industrial psychologist role. I often say even working for a recruitment agency or being an in-house recruitment consultant can be such a powerful career starter, because when you're in recruitment, you get to spend a lot of time with leaders and managers within an organization. You get to understand the way jobs are designed in that organization, and the way jobs are designed, or what jobs a specific company has within its structure. It gives you a good sense of what that business is about. So understanding the business strategy, you don't have to be working with senior people or being in organizational design, organizational development, even recruiting, getting into a recruitment agency where you recruit for a company can fundamentally help you understand the commercials of a business. And starting out being super commercial is something that also I've found can set you apart, and really give you confidence when you're engaging with, whether it's your peers, but also managers within a company.
Sure. And I think what you're saying speaking and resonates so much with me, because starting out, one of my expectations was, I qualify, write the board exam, I pass, industrial psychologist, that's going to be my job title. Yeah. And I am yet to come across a job posting that's an industrial psychologist, because I think coming out of university, we all want to be industrial psychologists, because considering how long and how difficult this journey is, we like, I deserve to be called an industrial psychologist. I think it's rare to find someone, especially in mine and Amu's stage, where you are humble enough to say, you know what, I'm okay starting as a recruitment officer. I'm okay starting as an HR admin, because we want to be that industrial psychologist. We all want to make that exco level impact. We want to be the Ntswakis of the world, even though we're just starting out, But yeah, and I think I'm going to pivot that to Amu as well. What is one thing that you kind of also wish you knew when you are either still an intern or still starting out on this journey?
I think for me, it goes back to that my journey is again layered, right? I wish I knew that it's not going to be, to both your points, like I'm going to write my board exams and then I'm going to be the industrial psychologist for that organization. For me, what really, that happened to me quickly, where I realized that, listen, this is where you're going to start, and then you're just going to grow into your role being an industrial psychologist, and particularly focusing on the OD stuff as well. Like I said, the past 5 years I've been in consulting. And in consulting, I make this analogy of a medical doctor, a GP, right? You're a generalist doctor and you have 5 patients a day. The first patient you're diagnosing with flu. The second patient, it's bronchitis, so it's in consulting, you get to really tap into the various organizations and what they need and what their talent needs are. So my brain has, and my work has shaped me in such a way to say, okay, now I'm speaking to Dexter, right? What is Dexter's talent need and what frameworks do I know that I can apply for Dexter? Ntswaki might have the same problem, but the operational aspect of me applying that framework will look different for her organization, right? So that comes with learning, it comes with experience, and it also comes with being in a particular role and organization, whatever it is, as long as it's fulfilling, you love it and you energized by that, then it's just staying the course really, until you land your ideal job. And I just wonder if one lands an ideal job, because you enter an organization and your job description says one thing, but you get there and you need to learn new skills, and the industry requires of you to learn new skills as well. So it's also, again, about continuous learning. I can be an industrial psychologist. This is what university taught me. But I get to a specific company and the talent need is not, identical to what I learned, right? So it's just accepting that and being the best IOP that you can, whether it's in recruitment, development, and servicing different, job levels, C-suite, and operational individuals as well. So, yeah.
I want to double click on what you're saying, and I'm going to pivot this to Ntswaki. So you did mention, like we said, starting those recruitment officer roles, those roles that you don't typically think industrial psychologists would take. What advice would you give to someone in that phase who, okay, I've listened to you, Ntswaki, I'm in Dexter, fine, I'll take that recruitment officer role. How do I now make an impact as an industrial psychologist within that space?
Yeah, I mean, the two things that come to mind, the two, I'd say, ingredients. You have to take risks. That's the first thing. And I'll share a little bit of where I personally took risks early on in my career. You have to believe in yourself. You have to. Because you're not going to go out there and have people cheering naturally for you, but you have to believe, having gotten to a master's level, so many people apply to get into the program and not everyone actually makes it. You having that designation or even getting to an honors level and qualifying as a psychometrist. And I'll tell you the story. So after my honors, I thought, I actually needed to work because, at home I needed to help and support. And I thought, okay, let me go the psychometry route. And I did my the psychometry program with the University of the Free State at the time, and we were still, as part of our internship, we needed to score tests with test stencils, with pencils. I would sit for hours. Yeah. But I wrote the psychometry board exam and I failed it.
Sure.
Wow.
I failed it. And I had never failed at anything before. I remember getting my letter in the post at home in December because I had written, I think, the October board exam, and I was shattered that I failed the psychometry board exam. But I've always had this fighting spirit in me, and I remember sitting down with my dad and saying, okay, where to from here? Should I retry the exam again, or should I fundamentally rethink? And I kind of decided, actually, I wanted to be a psychologist. I'm going to pursue the route and go all the way, and I'll deal with everything thereafter. But long story short, there'll be, I think, learning that you're going to fail and things are not always going to go your way, and having an internal, a deep sense of conviction that you deserve to also have an incredibly successful life, and you've got the makeup to actually make something of your life, would be the one thing that I think one has to start out with. And secondly, have the confidence. I mean, a lot of the roles that I applied for right after my internship at MultiChoice, I applied knowing I didn't really have like 7 years of experience, but I applied anyway. I remember going to interviews, shaking, and talking about things that I saw. And I mean, Sane was my senior at the time at MultiChoice. She was a HR consultant and a couple of others, including Refilo. We were part of the same team there. But seeing how they were HR consultants at the time, I took a lot of that confidence in what I saw them do. And I went into interview spaces, and I knew if I can be given the chance, I can do something as equally amazing as that.
Yeah.
And I think having that confidence and taking chances and applying for roles and understanding you'll get rejected, but go back is something that I can't really underestimate, or we can't underestimate. And then the piece that Amogelang spoke about, the world is very different today, and continuously learning about where the world of work is, what's influencing it, what's impacting it. It's quite important. So you don't go into conversations and or interviews and you sound like you're not in touch with how things have evolved. I think that's really, really important. The last piece of advice is, I think when you're newly qualified as an organizational psychologist, it's easy to go into teams made up of colleagues that are not necessarily psychologists, and you think you know it all. You look at your HR colleagues and you think they don't know as much as you do. You have to be humble. We're not the oracle. Or the oracles in HR teams. There are people that you're going to work with that have not qualified as psychologists, but you can learn so much from in terms of how to bring the science to life, because what they bring as a strength is this very practical way of looking at problems within organizations. And you can learn a lot from that. So again, go into spaces. Don't think you know it all. Sit with your HR colleagues and really share what you know, but also be open to learning from them.
It sounds like there's a kind of a balancing act that one needs to do, especially in the early phase of the career, because on the one side, you need to be confident enough to say, you know what, I can take up space, I can push, I can be in this kind of environment. And the other side is like, okay, fine, I'm here with my master's, I'm here with my qualification, but there's still so much I need to learn. And I think I'm going to just touch on this, but we're not going to focus on it, is the CPD, the importance of CPDs as well. Because like you're saying, keeping up with what's happening in the current world of work, industry trends, all of that, I think that, for me, that is the main purpose of CPD. Is not just to keep you compliant, but to continually upskill yourself as a psychologist, so you're able to be in those conversations and continue making that kind of impact. But I wanted to jump to Amu now. So I think Ntswaki, you did share kind of one of the challenges, the hard landings that you had, failing a psychometry exam. As I'm trying to imagine myself. For me, you're a strong one for that one. Shout out to your resilience. But what was a hard learning or landing for you that you've experienced in your journey so far?
So first of all, I think we're all high achievers. So seeing a fail, that crushes you, right? For me, the hardest most challenging obstacle I had to face was finishing my master's. So I've never failed in my life. I've always been an A student, and my master's humbled me. So then I did my coursework, got into Top 10 Solutions, did my internship there, wonderful, amazing. And I just, for some odd reason, my dissertation just being up here, like it wasn't, so, but that was the hardest thing for me. I had to change my methodology, and it's just the challenges that, we don't, because you just think that your journey is going to be swift, right? You're going to collect your data, analyze your data, write your thesis, and you're done. Unfortunately, reality sometimes doesn't allow for that. For me, getting the data, getting approval from the organization I was collecting data for took forever, and getting people to be enticed to actually want to be part of my study took forever. So that caused the biggest delay for me to finish my master's, right? So I had envisioned 2 years, I'll be done, but it took 4 years. But yeah, that was the biggest thing. And I think the one thing my colleagues say to me was, Amo, just get it done. Amo, get it done. Every time I would complain, she would be like, Amo, just get it done, right? And again, it goes back to the community that SIOPSA provides us, and that organizations also provide us and colleagues provide for us. So that was the biggest obstacle. But with that being said, I did not quit. I pushed through. I hated it, but I pushed through, right? And again, looking back and being where I am now, I'm so proud of myself for being resilient, even when it just looked like it's just never going to happen. I thought about deregistering at least 3 times.
Sure.
Because I just felt like I'm not going to get through this, right? But it's just hearing colleagues the next morning after you had 1 hour of sleep, colleagues saying, you know what, you're going to get through this. Or friends and family just saying, Amo, we're here to support you. Don't deregister. Tell us whatever you need. And I did. And it really helped me to finish my master's. Yeah. But that was the biggest obstacle. And I guess the advice to the audience who are struggling, just push through and just get it done.
Sure. Yeah. I read so much that research. I keep telling people, you really need to convince me to do my PhD. The way I did like my research, collecting data. Oh, I was like, you're going to really need to convince me. You need to pay me to do my PhD. But I think just to share a bit from my side, one of the biggest challenges I faced was the internship search. I think the competition has grown immensely even now. I'm just seeing how people are struggling. But even back then when I was still looking for an internship, I remember just sitting like thinking, what is wrong with me? Why will people not take me? Why am I getting all these rejections? And you know how important that internship is for your journey to become an industrial psychologist. So it's like, okay, I'm stuck at this barrier. If I can't get past this, what's next for me? And I think, I remember just sitting in my room and, because I like doing things, I'm that independent person. I know a lot of people say last born, the babies. I was not that baby. I like being independent, all of that. So even in that moment, I was like, I need to figure this out on my own. But then thankfully I had classmates who were all going through the same struggle. But for the longest time, we were doing it in silence. We're all crying in our own little corners there. But then once one of us opened up, like, you know what, this is the struggle I'm facing. I'm struggling to get an internship. I'm starting to rethink my choice. And we all ended up sharing and opening up about our journeys, about our struggles. And that helped me cope. Like, you know what, you're not alone. And we helped each other on this journey. So I think, I don't have advice. I'm going to ask Ntswaki to share advice. So for you in those moments of maybe self-doubt or comparison, what helped you get through those moments?
Firstly, I cannot imagine what it must be like to be ready to do your internship and you can't find opportunities anywhere. I think it was very different back in the day, when we were starting out, because a lot of organizations were, I think, thriving at the time. And I mean, the likes of EdCon, they would take hundreds of interns, and I cannot imagine how difficult it must be for you guys. So I empathize. And I suppose also being a part of, psychologists in corporate now from a leadership perspective. This is something that often we speak about, whether it's with other heads of talent in the industry, because we can see the pain, right? We can see how many of you guys are really, really struggling to find placements in internship opportunities. And I suppose on the one hand, as SIOPSA, there's ongoing conversations we're having with the HPCSA around, I think, the implementation of the regulation around, internships or interning just before you can write your board exam, and just the practicalities that surround that, and the real life implications on emerging psychologists that are aspiring to register. I think it's going to be an ongoing conversation, and it's something that we're continuing conversations with the HPCSA around, and I mean, working with you guys and the rest of the colleagues in SIOPSA. And then from an industry perspective, the one thing I can say, and it's what I said earlier on, you have to continue to have grit, because it's not going to be easy. And I can't pretend like it will be. It's not going to be easy. I think if you are looking for an opportunity for an internship, you're going to have to be very open to really structuring a hybrid program where you go through and work with multiple consulting houses, where you can find hours or independent psychologists. So you're going to have to be very open to not being traditional in how you structure your own internship program. And where opportunities, come up, and I think as the economy kind of gets better from a growth perspective, we'll probably see a lot more organizations really coming through with structured program opportunities. And it's certainly something that, in the organizations I work in, we try as much as we can, but I know the number of slots available is just not sufficient. So I suppose it's not, the advice I can give is be flexible, be open, and be creative, and reach out. I know you guys have a community as IGWIP. Reach out to professional practice, reach out to other colleagues in the industry, and I'm sure there'll be somebody that will help you find hours somewhere. Just don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Okay, thank you. So I think don't give up. Definitely. I think the resilience has been coming up so much in this conversation because I'm yet to come across industrial psychologists who didn't face a challenge of at some point where they were like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too difficult. Let me go somewhere else. So that resilience, it builds, and the only way it builds is if you don't give up, if you continue, you keep on keeping on, But I want to take us now just after the internship. So I'm going to come to you, Amu. What advice or what did you wish you knew regarding internship, regarding supervision, regarding getting hours, or just navigating the internship? What did you wish you knew entering that internship?
Yeah. I wish I knew it wasn't as straightforward as, the sheet that I had. I had to reach out to people, different organizations, to get the hours, to get the exposure, right? So it's the exposure doesn't come to me. I need to step out and I need to go look for it, right? So I wish I just knew that leg to stand on, to say, listen, if you want to finish within 12 months, you need to go out and look for those hours. And the second most important thing is your supervisor is your partner more than anything. Don't think that they're just there to sign off your quarterly reports, but they're also there as a sounding board. They're also there to actually help you direct you into the right spaces, the right organizations, the right stakeholders as well. So that's what I just wish I leveraged that a little bit more, just to partner more with my supervisor at that time, because it would have been more powerful, more effective in terms of me finding some level of grounding in terms of what I'm doing. I will get there, but I just need to talk to my supervisor and say, I'm struggling a little bit here. Do you know where I can get hours from? So I think it's important to partner with your supervisor and just have a conversation with them. They're likely to lead you in the right place.
And I remember I was having a conversation with someone late last year, I think, just speaking of how there's a certain, I don't know if it's the young people that come into the space, there's a certain sense of entitlement where they want things to be handed to them, even in the internship, not understanding that your internship is your own. You need to own it. You need, like you're saying, reach out, have those conversations with your supervisor, because again, this is your journey. No one's going to walk this journey for you but you, So I think, like you're saying, it's very important that we reach out, have conversations with the support systems around us, your primary supervisor, secondary supervisor, your line manager, whoever it is, whoever's around you, you need to be having conversations with that, because that's actually what we do as professionals. And as psychologists, we have conversations. That's what we do,
Can I add something, Dexter, on that? I mean, the learning again, if you happen to be in an organization doing your program there, a lot of the people you work with will not say to you, come join this meeting and this meeting will address that part of your program, or come be a part of this project. And they'll explicitly say it relates to that part of your internship program. The job, like Amogelang is saying, the job of actually understanding what learnings am I getting from this meeting I've just come from. It's a reflective process you need to lead as an individual. After you've been a part of a project or you've gone into a meeting, go back to your notes. What was being discussed here? What was the underlying theme? Then you need to make the connection between that conversation or that project you're a part of and see where thematically does it relate to in terms of your internship program. And that's how you get to see that every conversation, every meeting you go into, it's a learning that can contribute in some way or another into giving you both the exposure, the skills, but also the hours that you potentially need. Not everything will be spelt out for you.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
That's really important.
And while on that topic of reflection, as we're wrapping up this conversation, this is going to apply to both of you. So, Ntswaki, let's have a reflection moment. Let's pretend you're speaking to young Ntswaki, the unregistered Ntswaki, the one who hasn't really written her board exam as yet. What would you say to her in this moment, knowing what you know now, of course?
Yeah. I would say, firstly, you're going to be fine. You're going to be more than fine. And your deep need to often control and plan for everything, it's a good skill. It's a good competency to have, but learn to let loose a little bit, learn to be a little bit more flexible, because the world is going to change in a way that you can never imagine. Embrace technology and think about what you've learned from university and understand the competencies that it gives you as an individual and how it can apply to very, very different environments. Life does not move in a straightforward line, and continue to be open-minded and continue to be curious. That's what I would say to her.
Sure. Ntswaki, I hope you heard that. Amu?
I would say to younger Amo, be kind to yourself. Be very kind. Stay the course. Excel while you're staying the course. Do go above and beyond, and learn continuously. Those are the 4 things that I would say to Amo. But the foundation is be kind to yourself.
Sure.
I'm not going to explain further, but it's just be kind to yourself. Don't be hard on yourself. You know, you are human, you're learning.
Yes.
And life has its ups and downs. So does work, so does your personal life. But in the midst of the chaos, be kind to yourself.
That's so powerful, because you spend most of the time with yourself. You talk to yourself the most. And as much as we don't want to admit it, we have this conversation with ourselves the most, and those shape who we are and how we deal with things. So last thoughts from you guys. What do you want our listeners and our watchers on YouTube to take away from this conversation?
Yeah, so I think the big thing for me is understand that your skills or your qualification as a psychologist don't necessarily need to be applied in a corporate setting. Okay. The technology space is booming. Okay. And think about your career trajectory again in a very creative way. Okay. And that sometimes you may need to jump 5 different loops to get to potentially where you think you ought to be, but be creative around how you can make leaps, and especially in the technology space. Industries are shrinking. Some industries are growing. You have to be in touch with that. And the technology software space is booming. And I think there's a space for us as organizational psychologists to apply the skills that we have, for you to apply what you've learned in your honors year as a psychometrist in that technology industry, because it's booming all over the world and in South Africa specifically. So I'd say start to look at that industry and think about where you could craft a niche for yourself and how you could potentially get a leg in that environment.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, thank you for that.
I have 2 key takeaways. The first one is be in spaces where you're going to get knowledge, right? Be in spaces where you're going to absorb people's experiences, because it's going to help you. It's going to help clear your direction and your journey. So as an intern, as an emerging psychologist, have someone who is in that space, who has walked that journey, so they can help guide you. That's my first takeaway. My second one is continuous learning. It doesn't have to be you pursuing your PhD after your master's, but it's really doing a short course on AI and how can you leverage that short course and bridge the gap with what you're doing, right? So that would be my my second takeaway.
Dexter, can I add one last thing?
Of course.
Around the issue of money, a lot of us will go into internship programs. You're going to earn 3,000, 6,000 rands. Try to understand and learn how money works, okay? Because money can work for you or it can work against you. A lot of us have people back at home that we're supporting.
Yeah.
Don't come to Joburg and you're making 12 grand and now you're living it up. Learn how money works.
Yeah.
Learn to save. Learn to live within your means. The last thing you want is to start out your career and you are in debt.
Yes.
Because there are people that are expecting you to do your bit back at home and you need to build using the opportunities that you have.
Yeah.
Sure. Powerful stuff. Very practical. I love that. Very practical. Understand the context that we're operating in. Thank you guys both for sharing. Thank you for being so open with your stories and sharing your journeys. Really appreciate it. This was the IOP Lens podcast where professionals meet people and we come together as humanity. Thank you for joining us. Any information that you require or anything else you want to know, the link is in the below. Reach out to us via email or on our social media as well. Thank you for listening. Until next time.